At 28, Ethan, a top back-end software engineer at a leading Beijing tech firm, poured every penny, spare minute and ounce of tenderness into a 3-year long-distance engagement. He bought a fully paid, spacious 3-bedroom condo and voluntarily added his fiancée, Chloe's name to the deed, offered the region's highest bridal betrothal gift, plus a full set of premium diamond and platinum jewelry. He traveled hundreds of miles back and forth between 2 cities non-stop to nurture their relationship, yielding to her every whim and mapping out every detail of their shared future. Yet on their scheduled marriage registration day, Chloe deliberately cut off all contact for 6 whole hours to meet a wealthy bachelor suitor, leaving him stranded alone in a sweltering civil affairs hall under strangers' judgmental stares. After the fiasco, her entire family ganged up to blame him for overreacting, without a shred of remorse. The truth soon unfolded. Chloe and her mother had plotted an elaborate scheme from the start. While relying entirely on Ethan's constant financial support, she juggled multiple male admirers behind his back, planning to dump him once she drained his assets and locked in half ownership of his property. Once he saw through the elaborate fraud, Ethan severed all ties without hesitation. He packed up all his belongings overnight, hired a lawyer to recover the full betrothal payment and jewelry, and fended off the Sue family's slander, public harassment, and mob intimidation with complete legal evidence. Free from years of draining emotional turmoil, he threw himself into his career and earned a dramatic promotion with a massive pay rise, rebuilding a relaxed, self-sufficient lifestyle. Later, he crossed paths with Zoe, a pediatric attending physician who shared his values and treated love as a two-way street built on mutual respect. The two built a balanced, mutually supportive marriage based on equal give and take. In stark contrast, Chloe's schemes all backfired. She hastily married a low-wage factory worker trapped in a penniless, bickering household, mired in endless fights and financial hardship. Her parents' small grocery shop folded due to their ruined reputation, leaving the whole family drowning in endless regret. The sharp contrast between a wasted, one-sided romance and a peaceful, fulfilling new life lays bare the novel's core fate. Respect always outweighs romantic affection in any lasting relationship. If Ethan had softened and forgiven Chloe that day, what suffocating, hopeless marital hell would he have fallen into for decades to come? Was his brutal, immediate break from 6 years of attachment merely a rash impulse, or the only path to save himself from a lifetime of suffering? Will Chloe and her manipulative family be trapped forever in the miserable dead end they crafted for themselves, with no chance to turn their lives around? The July heat in Zhangcheng was a suffocating, bone-deep dampness. Not a breath of air moved through the streets. The asphalt had gone soft under the midday sun, sticky enough to cling to your soles, and the air itself was thick with scorching dust that burned your throat with every dry swallow. The central air conditioning in the Civil Affairs Bureau's lobby was barely adequate, and even the cool marble floor couldn't hold back the creeping humidity. The rows of plastic chairs in the waiting area had grown faintly warm from the sun, and after 10 minutes your back would be slick with a thin film of sweat. My name is Luke Liu. I was 28, a senior back-end engineer at one of Beijing's top internet giants. 5 years out of college, fueled by endless nights of grinding out projects, my salary had climbed steadily. I owned outright a 3-bedroom apartment in the Third Ring Road, 130 square meters, about 1,400 square feet, whose renovation I'd personally supervised for 8 months straight. My car, a modest sedan, had cost me $21,000, paid in full, no loans. And I had been with Sophia Sue for 3 full years. We'd met in a university club. She was 2 years younger, a Zhangcheng native through and through. After graduation, she chose to stay home, while I took the offer from the Beijing tech firm, and we began 3 years of long distance. Those 3 years, I poured every spare hour, every saved dollar, every ounce of gentleness into her. Every month, I squeezed out 4 days of annual leave. Friday evening, I'd board the high-speed train for the 5.5-hour ride to Jiangcheng, and Sunday night, I'd ride back 1,000 miles round trip, rain or shine. I never missed an anniversary, a Valentine's, her birthday, designer lipsticks, custom perfumes, mid-tier handbags, gold jewelry, never cheap. And every month, I wired her $500 for her daily expenses. Our parents had met formally half a year ago to discuss marriage. Following the local Jiangcheng custom for the highest standard, I'd transferred a one-time bride price of $40,000 and bought a full platinum and diamond set, a 1-carat engagement ring, a platinum necklace, and a solid wideband bracelet, all from brick-and-mortar boutiques, receipts intact. When we'd talked about the apartment's title, I'd originally planned to keep it solely in my name before marriage. Sophia cried for a full week, saying I didn't have her in my heart, that she'd have no security after we wed, even threatening to break up. I ached for the 3 years she'd endured long distance with me, softened, and flew back to Jiangcheng to add her name as joint owner at the property registry. That apartment, which had cost me every penny I'd saved, was now half hers. All our relatives and mutual college friends considered us the perfect match. Our wedding was set for August 16th. The hotel, the gown, the photographer, the favors, all deposits paid. Everything was locked in, save for the final step. On July 15th, we would go to the Civil Affairs Bureau and get our red marriage certificate, making it legal. I'd cleared my schedule a week early, pushed back a crucial quarterly project review, taken 3 days off, arrived in Jiangcheng on Thursday night, checked into a hotel, and waited with a full heart for that day. The appointed time was 9 in the morning. I arrived at 8:10, grabbed a number from the queue machine, and clutched it in my palm, folding and unfolding it. In my pocket were both household registers, both IDs, the pre-filled application forms, and the red background photo we'd taken at a studio a week earlier. In the picture, Sophia smiled sweetly, her head tilted against my shoulder, eyes curved with unmistakable anticipation. I stared at that photo for a long time, running my fingertip gently along the outline of her face, mapping out all the small routines of married life, ending the distance, applying for a transfer to the Jiangcheng office within 6 months, or jumping to a local tech firm, cooking dinner for her every night, hitting the weekend market together, adopting that ragdoll cat she'd always wanted. At 8:50, I sent my first WeChat message. I'm here and got our number. Have you left? It showed as read. No reply. 9 o'clock, the appointed hour. The lobby was packed with couples, each clutching tiny bouquets of roses or white veils, leaning into each other with laughter, the air thick with sugary hope. At the window next to mine, a couple signed their forms and hugged, waving their red booklets with a cheer that floated over and made my solitary waiting feel all the more conspicuous. I tried Sophia's video call. 3 times, all rejected. A faint unease brushed my chest, but I shoved it down, soothing myself. Girls take time on their wedding day. Makeup, dresses, fixing their hair. It's normal. I turned my phone volume to max, set it on my thigh, and fixed my eyes on the chat window, terrified of missing her. 9:30, half an hour passed. Still nothing. I couldn't hold back and called her mother, Linda Wang. She answered with a vague, evasive tone, murmuring that Sophia had left early and she didn't know where she was, then hung up before I could press further. I dialed Sophia's best friend, Cindy Lin. It rang forever before she picked up, her voice hesitant. Finally, she stammered out. Sophia's family had a distant cousin, The whole bunch showed up today, and the elders insisted she stay to host them. She can't get away. She said it's okay to push the registration back a day or two, so just wait a bit longer, don't rush. A heavy, suffocating pressure ballooned in my chest. This was our wedding. We'd set the date half a month ago. Even with unexpected guests, if she gave a damn, she'd have sent a single message half an hour early. Not even an apology, just left me to sit alone in a strange lobby. But 3 years of love held me back. I couldn't bring myself to blame her over this. I texted Cindy, asking her to tell Sophia to come as soon as she could. I would wait right here, wouldn't leave. I put the phone down, straightened my back on the plastic seat, and stared at the lobby entrance. Every time a woman pushed through the door, I'd look up, and every time I was disappointed, the hope cooling by degrees. 10 o'clock. 11. The clock dragged its hands like lead. The midday sun poured through the huge glass windows, doubling the heat. I hadn't eaten in 6 hours. Stomach acid churned and sharp hunger pangs stabbed through my gut. There was a convenience store 100 yards away, and a dozen times I thought about darting out for bread, but I was terrified that in the minute I left, she'd arrive and we'd miss each other. So I held tight to my water bottle, taking tiny sips to tamp down the emptiness. The crowd shifted, wave after wave. The registration clerks began tidying their desks for lunch, and as they passed me, their glances carried a kind of pity. Only 2 or 3 other solo waiters remained. Everyone else was paired. The murmurs of love around me made my solitude sting like a fresh cut. I scrolled through all 3 years of our chat history, thousands of daily exchanges. She used to report everything, even running downstairs for a package. Now, a family lunch was enough to sever all contact, with no explanation at all. 11:40. I'd sent over a dozen messages, gentle questions about her location, sweet reminders to stay cool, then plaintive confessions of how hard the wait was. All read, no reply. I called her again, this time the cold robotic voice of a powered-off phone. In that moment, the last shred of hope shattered inside me, leaving only a numbing chill. The security guard, on his 3rd circuit, stopped beside me. He was kind, his tone gentle. "Son, you've been sitting here all morning. If your girl's not coming, maybe go home and rest. She might not show this afternoon. Don't punish your body in this heat." I managed a bitter smile and shook my head, still refusing to rise. I pulled out my phone and flipped through the gallery. Photos from our college days, screenshots of high-speed rail tickets from countless trips. Every image a testament to everything I'd given. Now they felt grotesquely ironic. At noon, the service windows all shut. Only the guard, the cleaning lady, and I remained in the lobby. I dragged my wobbly legs outside, bought a whole wheat loaf and a bottle of iced water at the convenience store, squatted on the steps, and forced the bread down my throat. It was dry and rough. The cold water hit my stomach like needles, every mouthful acrid. At 1, the windows reopened. The new shift clerk passed me again and offered a gentle reminder. "Son, you can't register alone. If she's not answering, it's probably not happening today. Put your papers away and come back another day." I nodded silently, but didn't move. 2, 3. The summer sun slowly slanted westward, and the lobby's heat eased a little, but the chill in my heart only deepened. 6 years of knowing each other, 3 years of long distance, 40,000 in bride price, the apartment I'd emptied my savings for. She had weighed all of it against a temporary family gathering and found it wanting. She knew I'd taken time off work, travelled 1,000 miles, sacrificed a critical project, and she had still shut off her phone and left me to bear the stares of strangers. At 3:40, my fingers had gone cold. I typed my final message to Sophia. "I waited here from 9 to 3:40. 6.5 hours. You read everything. Never replied. Turned off your phone. No warning, no apology. Marriage is a promise two people run toward together, not one person's endless concessions. You chose not to come today, so I'm choosing not to marry you. The 40,000 and the jewelry, I'll have my lawyer arrange a full refund. The apartment title edition is suspended. We're done. I hit send without hesitation, deleted every photo of us from my phone, blocked her on WeChat, my number, Douyin, Xiaohongshu, everything. I shoved the household registers, IDs, and forms into my backpack, stood and walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau. The evening heat slapped my face, but inside I felt nothing like anger, just a hollow exhaustion. I didn't book a hotel. I opened the train app and grabbed the last available seat on the 7:10 express back to Beijing. Then I ordered a rideshare, destination, Sophia's rented apartment. I still had a lot of my stuff there: projector, gaming gear, seasonal clothes, books, and various expensive decorations I'd given her that I hadn't taken back. I was going to pack it all tonight. The ride took 20 minutes. The building had no lobby lock. I pushed through and entered her living room. My things were everywhere: the $1,000 home projector, the robotic vacuum, a full set of premium skincare, an entire cabinet of my jackets, and the luxury bags and jewelry I'd gifted her, sitting quietly on her vanity. I didn't smash or throw anything. I'd ordered large cardboard boxes ahead of time and stacked them by the door. I began to pack methodically: electronics in one, clothes folded flat, books and trinkets wrapped in bubble wrap, all in silence, without a single unnecessary sound. Halfway through, the key turned in the lock. Sophia walked in with her parents, Linda and James, and the visiting cousin and his family. When she saw the floor covered in boxes, her face went white. She rushed to me, grabbed my wrist with both hands, her eyes red and tearing. "Luke, what are you doing? My cousin's family came today, and I couldn't get away. My phone died at noon. I didn't have time to tell you. We can go tomorrow morning, I swear. I'll apologize with my parents. Punish me any way you want." I gently pulled my wrist free. My fingers didn't even want to touch her skin. My voice was flat, unreadable. No need to apologize. 6.5 hours alone. That's plenty of time to see everything clearly. In your heart, your relatives, your social life, they always come ahead of me, ahead of our marriage. I can't spend the next decades being ignored like this. The wedding is off. My lawyer will contact your parents tomorrow about returning the 40,000 and the full jewelry set. Before the words faded, Linda stepped forward, arms spread to block the boxes, her face twisted and voice shrill. "It was just a few hours, a tiny hiccup. Young couples have emergencies all the time. You're going to call off the wedding over this? $40,000. What will the neighbors and relatives think of our family? Tomorrow, we'll all go with you. Sophia will put you first from now on, never neglect you again." The cousin, arms crossed, chimed in with a patronizing tone. "Young man, you need to be more broad-minded. She's a girl. She was raised with family values. Hosting relatives is just basic decency. Half a day late, what's the big deal? You were willing to add her name to the apartment. Now backing out makes you look petty. People will laugh at you." Sophia clung to my arm, slipping back into that coaxing, vulnerable routine, soft, tearful. "I know I made you feel bad today. Let me take you to the best steak dinner, make it up to you. We can redo the whole wedding the way you want. I'll sign a waiver giving up my share of the apartment. Please don't leave me. I don't know how to live without you." I looked slowly around the room. Sophia, her parents, the cousin. Every face wore the same righteous reproach. No one seemed to grasp that leaving your fiancé stranded at the registry all day was the ultimate disrespect, a desecration of sincerity. The last wisp of lingering affection dissolved. I taped the final box shut, called the movers I'd pre-booked, and told them to come immediately. Sophia clung to my shirt, wailing. Linda pleaded. The cousin kept lecturing. I said nothing, just waited for the movers. When they carried the boxes down, Sophia ran out after me, barefoot on the hot asphalt, grabbing my arm. I freed myself gently, got into the rideshare, and didn't look back. On the way to the station, my phone buzzed with unfamiliar numbers. Sophia's messages, begging and blaming, calling me cold-hearted for ending 6 years in a snap. I didn't open a single one. I cleared the whole inbox and blocked every new number. The high-speed train left on time. Night had fully fallen over Jiangcheng. The city lights streamed backward through the window. I leaned against the seat and closed my eyes. There was no heartbreak, only a lightness, as if a 1,000-pound weight had lifted. Beside me, passengers chatted about weddings and new beginnings. I listened and felt a clear, cold certainty. What looked like a rash, cruel decision to everyone else was, in fact, the cleanest cut I'd ever made. I couldn't yet know how that choice would save me from decades of scheming, drain, and anguish, but I knew it would. The train pulled into Beijing just before 11. I dragged my luggage back to my third-ring apartment. The place was vast and quiet, stripped of all the saccharine decor I'd installed for Sophia, now just clean, minimalist wooden furniture. I sorted my belongings, washed up, and called Mark Joe, my childhood friend and a practicing divorce attorney with 7 years' experience handling bride price disputes and property splits. After I told him the whole story, the wait, the silence, the family's accusations, he frowned hard and said my immediate exit was the smartest move I'd ever make. Most guys in your shoes, Mark said over the phone, would cave out of guilt over the sunk cost. They end up trapped, squeezed by the wife's family for a lifetime. You saw the truth in 6 hours, and you cut clean. You dodged a crater. He offered to handle all the recovery negotiations, so I wouldn't have to face the SU family myself. All I needed were receipts, bank transfers, chat logs, and the day's records from the bureau. The next morning, I sent Mark the complete file, the bank wire for 40,000, the boutique invoices for the platinum and diamond set, the full WeChat history, the queue number from the registry, and my travel records. The evidence was airtight. Mark dialed James Sue and laid out the demand. Full return of the bride price and the jewelry set in undamaged condition. If any item was damaged, they'd have to pay market value. James exploded. He shouted nonsense, claimed the 40,000 was a gift for his daughter's youth compensation, that she'd wasted her best marriageable years on me, that since I was the one calling it off, they wouldn't return a cent. The jewelry, he said, was a gift given during courtship. Who asks for gifts back after a breakup? Mark calmly cited the relevant articles of the Civil Code. Without a registered marriage, the man has the legal right to a full return of the bride price. High-value diamonds and precious metals, given with the explicit purpose of marriage, must be returned if the engagement is broken. If they refused to settle, he would file a civil suit, and the SU family would bear court costs, property preservation fees, and a public record that could harm their credit. James hung up rudely. Within 10 minutes, Sophia started calling from new numbers. I blocked every one. Within hours, my own parents in my hometown got harassing calls from Linda, who wailed distorted stories to anyone who'd listen, claiming I was a heartless cheat who'd dumped a 6-year partner for being late, tricked her into taking a huge bride price, and then reneged out of pure malice. My distant relatives, hearing only her tearful voice notes, bombarded me with pleas to be forgiving. It's only a few hours, they said. 40,000 is nothing to ruin 2 families over. 6 years is too long to throw away. I didn't argue with each one. Instead, I posted the full timeline in our family group chat: the 9 o'clock appointment, my arrival at 8:15, the 6-hour wait, Sophia's read receipts and power off, the complete chat transcripts, the transfer proof, and Mark's legal analysis. The raw facts quieted the rumors. Many relatives, after reading, privately messaged me to say they understood, and that I'd seen the family's true colors in time. On the third morning, James, Linda, and Sophia drove hundreds of miles to Beijing and waited outside my apartment building. Sophia's eyes were swollen from crying. Her parents sobbed loudly, deliberately drawing the attention of residents, trying to shame me into reconciling and dropping the recovery claim. I spotted them from a distance as I came home. Instead of confronting them, I contacted building security and asked them to keep order. I also called Mark, who arrived 20 minutes later with all the evidence. In front of a small crowd of curious neighbors, Mark laid out the facts chronologically: the queue ticket, the 6-hour wait log, the screenshots of Sophia's silence, the bank transfer, and the jewelry invoices. "The law is clear," Mark said, steady and loud. "Without a marriage certificate, the bride price must be fully returned. Today's harassment at a residential complex is a public disturbance. If you don't leave, I'll call the police, and the video footage will be added to our lawsuit materials. Beyond the refund, you'll face penalties for disturbing the peace." The neighbors, now understanding the full picture, murmured their disapproval. Several older residents openly told the Su family that ditching your fiancé for an entire day was a monumental breach of etiquette, and that making a scene was only making things worse. Embarrassed and outnumbered, James and Linda dragged Sophia back to their car, but not before shouting through the window that they'd never pay easily and would drag this out forever. What followed was a 15-day war of attrition. Every 2 days, the Su family invented a new excuse. First, Sophia's 3 years of youth loss should offset the refund. Second, that I owed half the deposits for the hotel, gown, and photographer, all contracted in Sophia's name. Third, they fabricated false medical records claiming a miscarriage and demanded compensation for emotional distress. Mark dismantled every lie. The wedding contracts were signed solely by Sophia. The deposits were hers to absorb. The miscarriage claim had no hospital records, ultrasound images, or payment receipts, pure invention. Submitting false. When the package arrived, I opened it and saw the damage. The 1-carat diamond had a visible chip on its edge. The platinum bracelet was covered in crisscrossed scratches. The necklace clasp was bent and wouldn't close. Sophia had clearly destroyed them out of spite. Mark suggested I sue for property damage. I shook my head. Chasing compensation for broken jewelry wasn't worth the mental drain. Getting the full bride price back was already a win. I sealed the damaged set in a storage box as a permanent reminder of the fraud. Every friend and colleague who heard the story said the same thing, that my decision to leave that night and cut all ties was the clearest-headed move they'd ever seen. Mark and I had a long conversation later where he laid out the alternate timeline. If I'd caved on July 15th, if I'd postponed the registration and kept the engagement, the Su family would have escalated their demands. In every marital conflict, Sophia would always side with her parents and relatives, and I'd spend my life in a cycle of unending tolerance, giving endlessly while receiving zero respect. My apartment and savings would have become plunder. There would have been no peace. During the recovery battle, Cindy Lynn sent me a long, guilt-ridden message. She decided to tell me the full truth, the years of deception that Sophia had carefully hidden behind her gentle, caring mask. The distant cousin, who had supposedly come to visit on July 15th, was a lie from start to finish. By noon that day, the cousin's family had already left. Sophia hadn't gone to the Civil Affairs Bureau because the cousin had actually brought a wealthy local bachelor for her to meet. The whole family had spent the morning and early afternoon staging an impromptu matchmaking session. Sophia had turned off her phone deliberately, afraid I might call and expose the double game. Cindy's words cut deep. For the 3 years you were away, Sophia never stopped seeing other men. Every time you arrived on Friday, she'd cut off all contact with them, then resume chatting and dating the moment you left on Sunday. She'd take your money and gifts with sweet words, then complain to her girlfriends that you were dull, that long distance was a bore, that the local rich guys with cars and houses were much more fun. 6 months before, when the parents met to discuss bride price and the apartment title, Sophia and her mother had already devised a long-term scheme. Extract the bride price, get her name on the deed, then stall the actual registration while she kept looking for a better prospect. If she found someone richer, she'd dump me and walk away with both the cash and the property share. The whole missing appointment was a test to see how much humiliation I'd swallow. If I forgave that, she'd tighten the leash forever. Even her daily expenses were a scam. Her own salary went untouched into a private savings account. Everything, food, clothes, bags, dinners out, came from the $500 I sent monthly. She used that money to go on dates with other guys, accepted designer handbags from them, and never once gave me a straight answer. When I'd once spotted a flirtatious chat on her phone, she'd wept and sworn it was just a colleague joking around, and I'd believed her. Now I knew every word had been crafted. The apartment title wasn't about insecurity, it was a mother-daughter heist, planned after they'd researched that adding a spouse's name before marriage guaranteed a half share in a divorce. While I sat through those 6 agonizing hours at the Civil Affairs Bureau, Sophia was texting the rich bachelor, completely unbothered. It was only when she saw my breakup message, late that evening, that she panicked and raced home with her family to stop me. But she wasn't crying for me, she was crying for the apartment and the $40,000. When I finished reading Cindy's confession, a cold sweat broke over my back. If I'd stayed, if I'd forgiven her that day and gone through with the marriage, she would have continued to enjoy my resources while hunting for a wealthier husband. Then she'd have divorced me, split my apartment, kept the bride price, and left me with nothing. Years of my life, all my savings, gone. My decision to pack up and leave that night had been the single blow that shattered a carefully woven trap. I deleted Cindy's contact after reading her message. She'd known for years and said nothing. Once the financial disputes were settled and every Sioux family number was blocked, I finally shook off the 3-year drag of long distance, the endless emotional extraction, and the parasitic demands of her family. All my spare time and energy came back to me. During those 3 years with Sophia, I'd repeatedly asked for leave, missed critical deadlines at work, and been passed over for promotions twice. My boss understood the long-distance strain, but promotions only reward results. After I cut that toxic tie, I no longer spent hundreds on train fares or luxury gifts every month. I poured everything into myself, enrolled in a top-tier architecture training program, stayed late every night optimizing our back-end systems, and spent weekends at the city library devouring advanced texts. 3 months of intense focus paid off. Our company launched the annual Core Digital Platform bidding. I competed against senior engineers with 8+ years of experience. I wrote a complete technical proposal covering logic, cost control, long-term iteration, and client adaptation. My presentation was clear. I demonstrated multiple optimized models. I beat all 5 veterans and became the project lead. My base salary jumped 40%, annual bonuses doubled, and I received a special project incentive. Over the next year, No longer obligated to respond to Sophia's endless emotional demands, I poured my concentration into code, client meetings, and team coordination. We delivered with 0 errors. The client gave us perfect scores. The head office issued a company-wide commendation and a large bonus. Several top firms reached out with headhunter offers and higher pay. Outside work, I rediscovered myself, the fitness and cycling I'd abandoned. Every weekday I hit the gym for 2 hours, lifting and cutting. Weekends I rode mountain roads or hiked forest trails with colleagues and old friends. The fatigue and depression that had weighed me down for years sweated away. My energy returned, and I no longer had that permanent hollow look under my eyes. I'd once cancelled every social plan to accommodate Sophia: dinners, sports, industry meetups. Now I rebuilt my circle. Mark and I played basketball weekly. I met tech peers for coffee. My social life was clean and comfortable, my mind clearer. My parents, seeing me without the perpetual frown, finally relaxed. They stopped pushing me to marry, telling me to take my time and find someone whose values truly aligned. I renovated my apartment again. The enormous walk-in closet and dressing room I'd prepared for Sophia became a study and a small gym. All the saccharine pink decor was replaced with solid wood desks, tall bookshelves, and exercise equipment. The whole space reflected my own rhythm. Coming home now, I felt an ease I'd never known. No more anxious waiting for a reply. Sometimes I'd come across the old wedding planning files and the prepaid photos, and I'd feel nothing but relief. If I'd gone through with it, that apartment would have been a constant target for the SU family's greed. My life would have been one long hostage negotiation. Instead, I had this: peace and a career on the rise. On free weekends, I'd take short drives to ancient towns or lakes. I'd wander markets, sit by the water, without having to check in with anyone or fake interest in things I didn't care about. The solitude was a luxury I hadn't known in 3 years. Sometimes I'd pass a jewelry counter and remember the damaged diamond, but there was no bitterness, just the clarity that one-sided devotion can never buy true care. 1 year and 2 months after the breakup, I met Wendy Wen at an industry-wide tech conference. She was a pediatric attending at a top-tier hospital, an only child, born to university professors of literature and history. Her family was warm and rational. She was independent, owned her own small apartment, had a stable salary, and approached relationships with clear-eyed self-possession. She would never treat a partner as an ATM or an emotional sponge. At the conference, we were paired in a breakout group on digital healthcare integration. Our views aligned on tech, on boundaries, on what a healthy partnership should look like. We exchanged contacts, then started chatting online, then met for coffee and weekend hikes. Every encounter was easy, no games, no imbalance. On our first dinner date, when I reached for the bill, she gently stopped me and insisted we split evenly. Every outing afterward followed the same reciprocity. I gave her a programming book or artisanal candle. She gave me sports gear or home-roasted coffee beans. She never asked for luxury items or expensive gifts. Holidays were marked with small, thoughtful tokens. When we talked about marriage, she was blunt. Registration and the wedding were shared responsibilities. Both families would contribute fairly. She wouldn't demand a bride price or a title edition at gunpoint. She would never drop a major commitment without notice or make me wait alone. She told me about her parents' marriage, decisions made together, extended family kept in its proper place. If we set a date, we'd confirm our schedules a week in advance. No last-minute vanishing. I told her everything: the 6-hour wait, the SU family's schemes, all the humiliation. She listened quietly, without theatrics. Then she analyzed it coldly. Sophia had fundamentally lacked respect for her partner, taking everything for granted, Her family's values were transactional and boundaryless. My escape wasn't cruelty, it was self-preservation. 6 months in, we were solid. Our parents met, and there were no sky-high demands. We settled on a bride price of $15,000, modest, and agreed to combine our funds for a larger co-owned apartment. Wedding expenses would be split equally. Everything was negotiated jointly, no one conceded a loan. 30 days before we picked a date, we double-checked our work and travel calendars, booked the registry online, and the night before reminded each other to gather our documents. On the morning of, we arrived at the bureau together at 8, held hands, smiled through the forms. No anxiety, just mutual eagerness. When we received our red certificate, I looked back at that stifling summer 2 years ago and knew with absolute certainty, if I'd caved then, if I'd stayed and compromised, I'd never have met Wendy. I'd have been trapped in a draining marriage of calculation and neglect, losing my youth, money, and tenderness for nothing. Our daily life is a balance of independence and togetherness. We respect each other's work. When she's on night shifts, I leave her alone. When I'm buried in code, she brings me tea. Her parents never interfere, never make material demands. Holidays are reciprocal, small gifts exchanged both ways. She shares housework. I care for her when she's exhausted. We nurse each other through illness, celebrate victories, and hold each other through low moments. It's a partnership of equals. Sometimes we sit on the balcony at night with tea, and she leans against my shoulder, saying most men would have swallowed the insult for 6 years and 40,000. But I saw the boundary crossed and walked away. That clarity, she says, is rare, and every time I think of that night on the train, I feel nothing but gratitude. The seeming cruelty of that departure was the door that shut out a chasm and opened a new life. While Wendy and I were finalizing our wedding plans, an old classmate told me what had happened to Sophia after the breakup. Every scheme had backfired, her life had spiraled. After the bureau debacle, Sophia eagerly pursued the rich bachelor her cousin had introduced. She showered him with attention, hoping to marry up. But he'd seen through her gold digging from the start. He kept her around for 3 months of amusement, then dropped her cold. When she tried to get back with me through mutual friends, I refused every overture. The SU family's reputation in Jiangcheng was ruined. The courthouse drama and the public dispute over the bride price spread through their circle. Any decent eligible man in town steered clear. After a year of fruitless matchmaking with increasingly poor prospects, Sophia, under her mother's pressure, hastily married a factory technician from a struggling family. His parents had chronic illnesses and expensive medications. There was a younger brother still in school. Their home was an old walk-up with no elevator, no car, a bride price of barely $4,000, and no jewelry. Their combined incomes barely covered daily expenses. Her mother-in-law was domineering and petty. Relatives constantly showed up to eat for free and ask for favors. The contrast with the life I'd offered, unlimited support, everything paid for, was brutal. Sophia tried the same tactics on her new husband, demanding an allowance, designer goods, but he couldn't afford it. They fought constantly, cold wars that lasted days. Their home was a battleground, not a sanctuary. The apartment she'd schemed for was gone. The $40,000 was mostly returned. The damaged jewelry was worthless. No financial cushion. The luxury she'd taken for granted was a distant memory. Even drugstore skincare became a budget decision. Late at night, she'd sit alone in that cramped rental and cry over the morning she'd stood me up for another man. But it was too late. James and Linda fared no better. Their scheming had alienated every neighbor and relative. Their small convenience store lost customers, revenue tanked. The dream of marrying their daughter into wealth evaporated. Once, at a city mall, Sophia spotted Wendy and me, choosing wedding favors. We were smiling, easy with each other. She froze, eyes red, but didn't dare approach. She turned and walked away. Later, she sent an apology through a mutual friend. I replied that I'd moved on and wished her peace, but I had no desire to revisit. On a rainy autumn night, Wendy and I were curled on the sofa, flipping through our wedding album. She rested her head on my shoulder and murmured that almost no one, given 6 years and so much money, would have walked away the way I did. I stared at the rain-streaked window and thought back to that sweltering July evening, the boxes, the train, the escape. Everyone had called it rash, said I was throwing away 6 years for a few hours of lateness. But I knew, deep down, that 6 hours of silence wasn't a small accident. It was a billboard of disrespect. And behind that disrespect lay years of lies and calculated predation. If I'd stayed, if I'd postponed, I'd have lost half my apartment, all the bride price, and watched Sophia carry on with other men while her family bled me dry. I'd have spent my days in suspicion and strife, my career stalled, my savings gone, my youth eaten alive. That night's packing wasn't impulse, it was the clearest self-rescue I'd ever performed. By cutting the false bond, I reclaimed my time, my money, my focus, and eventually found Wendy, who gives as much as she takes, who made my life stable and warm. Those relatives who'd lectured me to forgive later heard about Sophia's miserable marriage and my peaceful happiness. They stopped preaching. I've learnt that the bedrock of any lasting love is mutual respect. One-sided giving and endless compromise never earn appreciation. When a relationship drains your emotions, your wealth, your future, when your partner's family constantly crosses every line, walking away isn't a loss, it's a lifelong rescue. The empty waiting chair, the scorching wind, the cardboard boxes, the night train, they form the watershed of my life. What looked cruel at the time was the only thing that saved the decades ahead. Today, I am utterly certain, leaving that evening was the sanest, most self-preserving choice I ever made. Our wedding was simple and warm, free of ostentation. Both sets of parents smiled without a hint of discord. I held Wendy's hand and recited our vows, feeling a calm I'd never known. The bitter past had become a cautionary footnote. No more resentment, just a reminder that boundaries are non-negotiable and respect must always outrank affection. Sometimes a new acquaintance will ask if I ever regret walking away. I always shake my head. A person who truly treasures you will never leave you marooned at a registry all day, won't hide years of affairs, won't collude with her family to steal your assets. Letting go of the wrong person is the only way to meet the right one. That summer night's decisive departure slammed the door on a pit of calculation and opened a gentle, straight road ahead. From then on, every meal, every season, every dawn and dusk, shared with a partner who honors me as I honor her. No exhausting inner war, only steady career growth and easy, ordinary days. All the old hurt dissolved because I stopped the bleeding in time. Mid-October in Beijing is the best season. Clear skies, crisp, dry air, the smell of fallen leaves. Wendy and I had just moved into our new co-owned flat, fully furnished. The south-facing living room window framed a row of ginkgo trees, their canopies brilliant gold. The sunlight poured in, warm and luminous. It was a Saturday, Wendy's day off. I made 2 cups of pour-over coffee and paired them with the whole wheat scones she'd baked the night before. We curled into our new velvet sofa, each reading, occasionally trading lazy observations. A neighbor walked his dog outside. The barking came muffled through the glass. Sometimes I'd catch myself thinking that the old anxiety, checking my phone every few minutes, terrified of missing her reply, felt like a past life. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. A number I didn't recognize. One short line. "Luke, it's Cindy. I don't know if you'll even see this. Sophia got divorced last month. She's in bad shape, lost a ton of weight. She came to me crying for a whole night. Said her mother screams at her every day for being worthless, for throwing you away. I hate to bother you, but she begged me to ask if you could meet her. Just once, 15 minutes, so she could say sorry to your face." I stared at the screen for a few seconds, blocked the number, put the phone down, and went back to my book. Wendy looked up from her page. "Who was that?" "Someone I used to know." "Wrong number," I said. She nodded and went back to reading. Sunlight traced the curve of her cheek, and a tiny patch of warmth glowed on the bridge of her nose. The soft rustle of her turning pages filled the quiet. I watched her and felt no tremor, only steadiness. The past was exactly that. Past. Those people and events, seen from 2 years away, were like old houses on the opposite shore, still standing, but completely irrelevant to my life. Early November. At the company's annual Tech Awards gala, I went up to accept the Best Project Lead trophy. My colleagues cheered. After the ceremony, we had a department dinner. A few drinks in, a new intern leaned over and whispered, "Luke, I heard you once called off a wedding and fled a whole city overnight. What were you thinking? I don't think I could throw away 6 years." An older colleague kicked him under the table, but I laughed and clinked my glass with his. Whether you can let go depends on whether it's worth holding on to. Some people spend 6 years learning the truth about someone. That's good luck. Others take 60 years, and by then their legs won't carry them away. The intern nodded, not fully understanding, but he didn't ask again. I got home just before 11. Wendy was still awake, cross-legged on the bed with a pediatric journal, a warm bedside lamp glowing. After I showered and slipped under the covers, she looked up, ran her fingers through my damp hair, and asked casually, "Good day?" "Great day," I said, and took her wrist, pressing her warm skin against my palm. "Got the award, had a good meal, and even mentored a junior colleague. Full circle." She laughed, closed her journal, turned off the main light, and left the nightlight on. She curled beside me, her voice drowsy. "Good." In the dark, I lay there, listening to the occasional car outside, the ginkgo leaves rattling in the wind. Wendy's breathing slowed into sleep. I stared at the ceiling and remembered that sweltering July evening 2 years ago, the high-speed train's freezing air, my back pressed against the seat, my phone clutched in my hand, Sophia's last read message on the screen. I'd thought I'd be sad for a long time, but that night, as the train hit 200 miles an hour and the lights of Zhangcheng shrank behind me, something heavy in my chest had begun to peel away with every mile. Now I see that night track as the only passage that dragged me from the mud to solid ground. It felt cruel then. Later, I knew it was clarity. It felt like an ending. Later, I knew it was a beginning. I turned and pulled Wendy closer. She murmured something sleepy and buried her face in my shoulder. I closed my eyes, as calm as the ginkgo outside, rooted in good soil, swaying a little in the wind, but never again to be uprooted. The best decision of my life was getting on that train and never looking back. Late November. Beijing's temperature plummeted. A north wind stripped the ginkgo leaves in swirling cascades. Grey daylight flooded the living room. Wendy had been called in for an emergency case that morning. She paused at the door to tie her shoes, looked up, and reminded me, "There's leftover pork rib soup in the fridge. Heat it for..." I saw Wendy to the elevator, wrapped her scarf tighter, watched her step inside, then went back, made another coffee, and stood at the study door. The box leaned against the bookshelf, the tape partially peeling, dust from the move still on its edges. I set down my cup, knelt and tore it open. On top, a stack of old tech books and a Jiangcheng tourist guidebook. I'd marked pages with notes, places we'd vaguely planned to visit but never went. Most weekends, Sophia would just lounge on the sofa scrolling her phone while I sat beside her, occasionally asking if she felt like going out. She always said she was tired. I tossed the guide into a discard pile and wiped the books clean to keep. At the very bottom, my fingers touched something cold and hard. I pulled out the black velvet jewelry case, corner dented, clasp half broken. I opened it. The 1-carat diamond ring sat in its slot, the chip glaringly obvious under the fluorescent light. The platinum bracelet was scarred with scratches, the necklace clasp bent out of shape. 3 pieces of deliberate damage lying together like evidence. I picked up the ring and turned it toward the light. A tiny shard of refraction splashed across my palm. 2 years had passed. The faint sting I'd felt when I first opened the package had long evaporated. Not even a trace of bitterness remained. These things were just stones now. I'd once believed they represented a future. Now I knew they were only an invoice for a debt that was never meant to be paid. I closed the box, weighed it briefly, then walked to the utility closet, opened the bottom drawer, and dropped it into a sealed bag among other obsolete receipts and outdated contracts. I closed the drawer, dusted my hands, and went back to the sofa. The whole process took under 2 minutes. No hesitation. Wendy came home early that afternoon, carrying a bag of warm, sugar-roasted chestnuts she'd bought at the hospital gate. She changed into her houseclothes, curled up beside me on the sofa, peeled a chestnut, and offered it to my mouth. "Did you get through the box?" she asked. "Done," I said, biting into the nut, the sweet warmth melting on my tongue. "Kept what mattered, tossed the rest. Nothing special." She nodded and peeled another for herself, chewing with puffed cheeks. A bland food documentary played on TV. The wind whistled outside. The living room was toasty. She leaned against me, and after a while turned her head, her eyes crinkling. "You seem in a good mood today." "When am I not?" I took the chestnut bag from her, set it on the coffee table, and pulled her closer. "The soup is hot. Have a bowl before you lie down." She mumbled she was too lazy to move, so I got up, ladled her a bowl, and brought it to her. She sat wrapped in a blanket, sipping slowly, occasionally glancing up at me with soft eyes, saying nothing. The room was quiet, except for the clink of spoon against ceramic and the low TV voice. Outside, bare branches shivered in the light of the street lamps, and the whole street glowed amber. I woke once in the night, too much water before bed. On my way back from the bathroom, I passed the living room. Moonlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting the floor bright silver. I didn't go straight back. I stood there for a few seconds, breathing in the quiet. From the bedroom, Wendy stirred and murmured my name in her sleep, half dreaming. I went in, slid under the covers, and she instinctively pressed against me, her forehead on my shoulder, her breathing evening out. In the dark, I remembered that high-speed train 2 years ago, the receding specks of lights, the silence, the grey seatback in front of me, the emptiness of not knowing what I'd go back to. I never could have imagined that 2 years later I'd be falling asleep beside someone who made all of that feel like a forgotten dream. Someone once asked if I regretted it. Now, if anyone asks, I'll say this. That night, when I walked out of Sophia's apartment building and she ran after me barefoot, clutching my arm, I gently pulled free, got into the rideshare, and closed the door. 10 seconds. The car moved, her figure shrank in the side mirror. Around the corner, she was gone. I haven't looked back since. Those 10 seconds were the best investment of my life. Our wedding was set for early April, late spring, Beijing's cottonwood fluff drifting on the breeze, the crabapple trees along the moat in full bloom. We chose a garden-style hotel on the East Fourth Ring. The courtyard was lined with flowering crabapples, petals scattered on the white tablecloths, making decoration almost superfluous. Wendy wanted something simple. We settled on a stripped-down plan. Only immediate family and closest friends, fewer than 60 guests. No door games, no drawn-out MC speeches. Just a meal and good company. Morning of, the sky was bright. I changed into my suit and stood in the second-floor lounge, watching the staff set tables and flower arrangements below. A few early relatives were sipping tea under the covered walkway. The mood was as relaxed as a weekend barbecue. Mark arrived half an hour early, set a bottle of wine on the table, and clapped my shoulder with a grin. "Finally got here. Not bad." I sat him down and poured tea. Mark was the only friend who'd witnessed the whole saga. From my phone call about the registry, to the Sue family's scene at my apartment, to the 15-day legal standoff. He watched me drink and then said soberly, "When you look back now, was there even one moment when you thought you'd been too harsh?" I took a moment. No. The 6 hours I sat there, I kept inventing excuses for her. Dozens of them, but none held up. Someone who truly holds you in their heart would never let that happen. That wasn't an accident, it was a choice. Mark nodded, clinked his tea against mine, and we silently turned the page. At 10, the ceremony began. The crabapple shade draped over white chairs. Parents sat in the front row. Wendy walked from the colonnade on her father's arm, sunlight sifting through the blossoms and spangling her dress in shifting gold. She reached me. Her father placed her hand in mine, squeezed my arm, and said quietly, "Take care of each other." I nodded firmly. Her hand was warm and dry. She wore no ostentatious diamond, only a plain silver band we'd hammered out together at a craft workshop with our initials carved inside. It cost less than $100 in materials and time, but it looked better on her than that chipped carat stone ever had. We didn't hire an MC. We spoke our own vows. Wendy went first, her voice unhurried, low but clear. "I met you when you were already healing. I've seen you zone out sometimes at night, then turn and smile at me anyway. I never saw your past as a burden, only as proof that you can fall and still stand steady. That's worth more than anything." My own words came next. I glanced at my parents, my mother dabbing her eyes, my father stone-faced but red-eared. I said, 2 years ago, I sat in a civil affairs bureau all day, waiting for someone. I thought I'd never get married. Turns out I was knocking on the wrong door. How many detours you take doesn't matter. What matters is that after you turn the corner, there's someone who chose to stay. People clapped. Wendy smiled at me, her eyes glistening. The whole ceremony lasted under half an hour. Then lunch, self-serve stations, mixed tables, no forced toasts. Wendy and I walked around with glasses, spending 3 or 4 minutes at each table, exchanging small talk. Mark, in a corner with old college friends, raised his glass. I raised mine back, and we smiled across the courtyard. By sunset, the guests had drifted away. Wendy and I stood together under the colonnade. Petals covered the ground. The setting sun painted the white wall a warm orange. The air was sweet with green. Wendy had changed into a simple dress with my suit jacket over it, sleeves rolled up, showing a thin wrist. She smoothed her wind-tossed hair and looked at me. "Tired?" "Not at all," I said. "Easier than hauling 6 boxes alone." She laughed and bumped my shoulder. We leaned against the pillar and watched the staff clear the last chairs and sweep up blossoms. Night crept in, streetlights lit up one by one. The breeze carried that soft late spring coolness. We decided to walk to the subway instead of hailing a car. The tree-lined avenue was draped in new locust leaves. Lamplight stretched our shadows long and overlapping. Wendy walked with her arm through mine, occasionally kicking a fallen leaf. She looked sideways. "Were your parents happy?" Mum cried a few times. Dad pretended to admire the scenery. That's their version of thrilled. She smiled and quickened her step. After a quiet stretch, she asked casually, "I heard your mum telling Aunt Xiao this afternoon that you used to be terrible at picking gifts. You'd buy expensive but completely wrong things, and only later learn to choose with heart. What did you used to give anyway?" I knew what she was really asking. Moonlight slanted through the locust leaves, dappling the paving stones. I didn't dodge. The most expensive was that 1-carat ring. When it came back, it had a chip and a platinum bracelet with scratches all over. They're in a box at the bottom of the utility closet. Wrong gifts for wrong people. All packaged together. Wendy walked in silence for a few steps, then slipped her hand out of my arm, rummaged in her small bag, and pulled out a folded square of paper. She pressed it into my palm. I opened it. Inside was a dry crabapple petal, flattened, edges curled and brown, but its veins still perfectly clear. She'd picked it from the courtyard and tucked it into her vow book. "For you," she said, "a souvenir from our wedding day. No cost, no diamonds. Shelf life, probably until you're 80. I tucked the petal carefully into my breast pocket, feeling the light, real weight of paper against my chest. The night wind came, carrying the fresh fragrance of locust blossoms. The subway entrance glowed warmly ahead. Wendy looped her arm back through mine, and we walked toward it like any ordinary couple on any ordinary night. Swipe the card, pass through the turnstile, disappear into the westbound train. That train won't be remembered as any grand turning point in anyone's story. But I know it's just as important as the one that ran in the opposite direction 2 years ago. One carried me out of the abyss, the other carried me toward the light. 2 parallel tracks, only a single turn apart.